Hi again, it's Joe, and thanks so much for listening. I had the opportunity to read and review John Egan's new book, The Stripped Down Guide to Content Marketing. Now, content marketing can be tough to navigate, especially for beginners. And if you need to step up your content marketing efforts, even if you're a grizzly veteran, John's book is a big help. Pick up a copy in Kindle, paperback, or hard copy at johnegan.net. That's johnegan.net, JOHNEGAN.net. Get the stripped down guide to content marketing today.
And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 353 of This Old Marketing for December 8th, 2022. And with me, as always, from the lovely, lovely country of Belgia? No, Belgium? Belgian? Belgia. My good friend, my colleague, and really the only guy who's truly upset that the Pantone color of the year is magenta, Mr. Joe Polizzi. Well, how is Belgium?
It's thank you. It's beautiful. The people are so nice. It's right now. It's the same temperature as it is in Cleveland, Ohio. It's about 35
is
degrees
that right?
and cold. But
is it sunny?
It was sunny today. It was sunny, but we're supposed to get similar weather for the weekend, and we're staying through and enjoying ourselves and going to partake in much chocolate and beer.
There you go. That's the thing to do.
As much as we can. Oh, it's just, and the people here are so wonderful. And a little tidbit,
beautiful.
I found this out
Brussels
today.
is absolutely spectacular.
You'll be interested in this because you were talking about, I think on a couple shows we were talking about how we're almost making this a recession because we're talking about it so much, especially in marketing and whatever. Belgium is the only country that has mandatory wage increases based on an inflation index. So in January, their inflation index is at like 11 or 12%. So in January, everyone that works for some size company will get a wage increase of 11 to 12%, and it's usually 1 to 2%. And it's a big, big deal here. Everybody's talking about it.
Man, that feels a little self-fulfilling, though, right? I mean,
that's the way they do it. So they're all talking about they're going to have to. What do you do?
I would love to hear an economist's view on that, because my gut reaction to that is, while it's great for the workers, it feels like it feeds the inflation, right? I mean, to a certain extent.
Well, I had a wonderful lunch with a number of content agencies, and they were talking about how they were going to handle it, but specifically the clients, the marketing, they are meeting with chief marketing officers. They seem to be holding their budgets and saying, okay, well, we'll commit to the next 6 months, but I can't commit to the next year because of these wage increases.
Well, here's the question. Does it go down in a deflationary environment?
I would never think it would go down.
I would think, right, it's Europe, right? So it's not going down.
But when's the last time? I mean, I don't know. I haven't been covering Europe, but in the United States, the inflation index has never, at least in my lifetime, it has never gone negative over a year's period of time. It did.
Fair point.
It did during COVID. It was we got really wacky there, but there's always been some increase. So I don't think it's a thing. But anyways, crazy, right?
Yeah.
Could you imagine that happening in the United States?
Oh, no, I can't imagine it happening in the United States. No, it would be, we would, I mean, half the House and Senate would go apoplectic with, all kinds of name calling. That is just, it's crazy. I mean, interesting, fascinating.
It is. It's fascinating. But
it's also one of the places, I believe, Belgium, or isn't it also one of the places that has experimented with the 4-day work week?
I don't know about that. I do know that they have a lot more holidays than normal countries. And
Well, that's Europe. I mean, that's that's Europe in general.
generally, they were saying that the average
it's a bank
worker,
holiday today.
the average worker gets about 30 days of vacation time, and then another 10 days of bank holidays. So you're already at 40, 45. I mean, you're
Right.
maybe there's another 15 in there. You could pull 2 months.
Right.
Oh, I mean, this is
It's Bluebird Monday.
This is
Hey, it's a bank holiday.
This is really fantastic. Really, it sounds like if you're going to
Right.
be a worker and you can keep your job, great place to be.
Yeah.
Keeping the job
Oh.
thing might be the issue if companies are going to lay off because of the increases. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not quite.
You're just going to enjoy the chocolate and the beer and the beautiful bucolic Brussels, which, by the way, I have been to several times and absolutely enjoyed myself every single time I was there. It's just a beautiful city, a beautiful country. It's really great.
And you're not a beer person, but you still.
Not really. No, not really. But the chocolate was amazing. And they have the one thing that you get throughout Europe is great French wine. So, and Italian wine and Spanish wine and, all the rest of it. But you get really good wine when you're in Europe. So I do just fine.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, you were a professional when it comes to wine and tequila. So
I lost my amateur status, yes, many years ago. That is correct.
Yeah, we're
is
excited
correct.
to try out some of the new beer, not new to us beers of Belgium, because they have this thing called the Abbey, where where monks used to make beer, but they have taken that on as a marketing aspect of it, and you can only I think there's only 15 or 16 abbeys in the world that can actually produce beer a certain way. So I have to really pace myself, because I mean, if there's 15 to 16, that's and plus if you're going to have a Duvel in there every once in a while, I mean, that's 8.5 or 9% alcohol right there.
Yeah.
So I have to be responsible.
When I was in Amsterdam, one of my earliest trips as a newfound consulting guy, in the world that you and I occupy, I met with this company and they took me out, the Dutch equivalent of bar hopping, right? Where you go into individual pubs and you get these tiny little beers. They're in small.
It's a regular size beer here. It's 33, right? It's like.
Well, no, it's not a pint. I'm saying it's a tiny. It's like the equivalent of 3 or 4 shots.
Okay.
But you you have many of them. Let me put it that way. You start in one and you maybe have 2 or 3 of those and you're like, oh, this is easy. Then you go to the next pub and you do 2 or 3 more and you go to the next pub. And by the 8th or 9th pub that you've done the walk of around the town, because they have it all planned out, right? I mean, they actually have names for their tours, right? They literally have a name for
the drunken stupor tour.
The order in which you do them. Yeah, the order in which you do the pubs. And by the time you get to your 9th or 10th one, you're sloshed. I mean, you're just absolutely blotto. And you're drinking these tiny little beers that you never realized how much beer you were actually drinking. And then they pour you into a taxi cab and then send you back to your hotel. It's a lovely evening.
It sounds like not a lot of time. You get to the hotel and you go right to sleep. It's kind of like that.
That's it. And then you wake up the next day and have to go visit with the client again, and it's like, that was a mistake. Yeah, that was a mistake.
I don't think I'm going to get any of those tours, but I am quite impressed with the holiday festivities in Brussels and how much they do it up.
Oh, do they have a Christmas market?
Well, we just took a quick tour through, but they apparently at night everything's lit up. They've got over the weekend. They're going to have special things that are going to go on. I will report back. I think it's going to be. Yeah. I think it's going to be a thing. It's going to be special.
If there's a Christmas market, you must go. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about. I mean, I wish we did that here in the U.S.
Well, I will request. I'll talk to somebody. I'll talk to the head Belgium person, and we'll make it happen. I'll just say, do what you did when Robert Rose was in town, something like that.
That's exactly what you need to do. Yeah, that's all you need to do. That's all I need to do.
Anything else? Well, before we get started, congratulations on the anniversary.
Oh, thank you.
You told me you had a great time.
We did.
It's a momentous occasion. 30
years.
Correct?
Yeah, 30 years. Wow. Can you believe it? Yeah, 30 years.
She is one patient woman. That's amazing. That's
yes. Well, as I said in my Facebook post, I don't know how I've rated for the last 30 years, but I'm glad that I do. I absolutely am glad that I do. Yeah, she's put up with my nonsense for a long time. So, yeah, it was lovely. We went up to Big Sur and had a great time up there, and it's one of my favorite places on the planet. I mean, is just absolutely spectacular up there, and it's, there's great hikes, and you can sit and watch the water and drink some wonderful Sonoma County wine, and it's just, absolutely spectacular.
And then, of course, we have to finish it off before we talk about news. You had a great week, your Dallas Cowboys. So congratulations.
They're playing well. Yeah, they're playing
bludgeoning.
Well. Yeah, they're playing well.
And the Browns didn't even need Deshaun Watson because they scored all their points on special teams and defense.
Yeah, there you go. I did not watch the game.
Jacoby Brissett saying, "Where were you when I was starting?"
Yeah. Here's the thing: I did not watch the game because I was away. I was away for my anniversary, and for those of you wondering, I did not even watch the game on my anniversary, which was the game was actually on my anniversary, so I didn't even watch the Cowboys.
Oh my God! That's how much you got extra points for that.
That's how much dedication I have. But so I did not see the game. How did he play?
Like he hasn't played in 700 days.
There we go. That's as I predicted.
Yes, and it's not something that's going to come back the next game. It was extreme rust.
Yep.
And was slow to read, through an interception, whatever. But the defense was unbelievable.
Well, your defense is playing very well. Has been all year, really.
They've been pretty good all year, but to
stop on the run is
two defensive touchdowns and have a punt return in the same game.
There you go.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So we remain in the playoff hunt with a 2% chance.
Big game this week
to make it.
You got a big game this week.
Well, Cincinnati Bengals, who we were fortunate to beat last time at home. This is in Cincinnati, though. So, and of course, they're coming off a big victory. Maybe there's a letdown. They had that great game against Kansas City. So we'll see.
Yep. Well, and the thing is, you've had Cincinnati's number for the last 3 or 4 times you've beaten.
That's the only team.
Yep,
yes,
exactly.
And Cincinnati Bengals fans are wondering what the problem is.
Yeah.
Like, why can't they beat Cleveland?
Yeah.
So So we're that team for them. But Burrow is so good.
He is.
He's so good. But
he is. All right, let's get to our show, shall we? Let's actually do a show here because we got to get you.
Yes.
We got to get you to chocolate first of all.
Yes, we're anticipating chocolate very soon.
Absolutely.
Right after this is done.
So we have a fun show. We'll do our, we gotta do our regular, what's up with Twitter segment. It feels like. So we'll very quickly cover just some of the latest news around the Bird app. We will then move and pivot into really what everybody has been talking about the last week and a half or so, how ChatGPT, the AI engine, is really shaking up people in both good and bad ways in terms of what's going on there from an artificial intelligence standpoint. Worked from a couple of different stories on that. Then we'll talk about General Electric and how they may have really done one of the most interesting advertising things in the last few years by buying out the entirety of the New York Times inventory for about a week, for this week, and then if we get time, we'll talk about the Texas government and how they have now banned TikTok from their users or their employees' phones, and how that may portend the beginning of the end for what's going on with TikTok and their ability to continue to go viral here in the U.S. And then I will rant a little bit about Gartner's new CMO outlook for the next year and talk about why I think that's a load of hooey. And Joe's will rant a little bit about online gambling and what's going on there with a very specific example of I guess it's got some content marketing implications too. For
there might be. Yeah, I actually want to get your take on it, but I'm very excited because there's nothing like a Robert Rose rant about Gardner. I would love this. This has to be 7 or 8. Maybe the record for you in rants is McKinsey sometimes, Gartner.
No, not McKinsey. Usually, I'm pretty.
Oh, Forrester.
Forrester is the other one. Yeah, Forrester.
I
Forrester more.
Sorry,
than Gartner.
McKinsey folks.
Yeah, no. Yeah, McKinsey's really upset about that. I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm sure.
By the way, I'm sure the Gartner and Forrester people are all torn up about it too. Yeah, I mean, no, nobody cares. Let's be clear. All right, let's get to it. Let's open with our first story, which we should have music for this. We should have music for like the Twitter update or some tweeting birds or maybe that, you know what we need? We need like a Frank Sinatra like singer going, that musky scent that,
Oh my gosh.
Wouldn't that be good?
Which is one of our better shows, the musky scent.
I'm actually going to find that. I'm going to find someone who can give us a little bit of the musky scent as a Michael Bublé standard
next week, which we probably will. We will put in a little bit of here's the theme song for this special.
There we go. Yeah,
because this is probably our 6th or 7th week of covering.
That's right.
Twitter first thing, which I don't know if people love it or hate it, but it just is.
It is, and it's news, and we have to cover it. That's the way That's the way it is.
And
all right.
And what news portends this week?
Well, it's from the New York Times, although a number of mainstream outlets are actually covering it because it was actually pretty big news. Elon Musk and Matt Taibbi, do we call him a journalist? I'm not really sure we call him a journalist, but let's use the journalist in rock and roll quotes there, basically revealed a number of internal documents from Twitter that set off a bunch of debates about whether it was nothing or whether it was something. And what happened was that Elon Musk had touted the idea that he was going to release the Twitter documents or the Twitter letters or whatever you want to call them, and basically said he was going to reveal some internal documents around the idea of the 2020 presidential race and Joe Biden's brother. On the surface, as the article opens up, a typical example of reporting the news, a journalist obtains internal documents from a major corporation shedding light on a political dispute that flared in the waning days of the 2020 race. But when it comes to Elon Musk and Twitter, nothing is typical. The so-called Twitter files, released on Friday evening by the independent journalist Matt Taibbi, set off a firestorm among pundits, media ethicists, and lawmakers in both parties. It also offered a window into the fractured modern landscape of news, where a story's reception is often shaped by readers' assumptions about the motivations of both reporters and subjects. The tempest began when Mr. Musk began to tease the release of the internal documents that said would reveal the story behind Twitter's 2020 decision to restrict posts linking to a report in the New York Post about Joseph Biden's Jr.'s son, Hunter Biden. Mr. Musk, who had accused tech companies of censorship, then pointed readers to the account of Mr. Taibbi, an iconoclast journalist. I love the way they just continue to put adjectives in front of journalists, who shares Mr. Musk's disdain for the mainstream news media. Published in the form of a lengthy Twitter thread, Mr. Taibbi's report included images of email exchanges among Twitter officials deliberating how to handle dissemination of the Post story on the platform. The article goes on to talk a little bit more about it and what actually happened and some of the reaction from Fox News and some of the other news organizations. I dug into a little bit of this because I had, quite honestly, my wife drove back from Big Sur, and I had time to sort of look through my phone and read some of the articles here. This was nothing. I mean, I don't know what your take on this is, but I just looked at this and went, yeah, they debated internally about some stuff, made a mistake, said that they should not or pull it down or not do it. Basically, there was a thing about Hunter Biden's junk, really, I mean, for lack of a better word, that they decided that they would pull down. But this seems like this was a lot of buildup to nothing. I mean, what did you think?
Well, your point is that there must be some board in Elon's office that he has like, okay, what can I do this week to keep me in the news?
Well, there's that for sure.
In my opinion, that's the first thing, because Elon's trying to make a case that Twitter pre-Elon did not adhere by the was not pro First Amendment, which this has nothing to do with the First Amendment. What I see, I read through this whole thing, read through a couple other articles, and it looks like, wow, this is Twitter, the media company, as they are, trying to figure out what the truth is.
Yeah.
That's it. What's so great? You've got some insight into how they were doing that, and Facebook has dealt with some of these things, rightly and wrongly, and you've got Twitter, and you have Instagram, and all of them. They all deal with this stuff. And this is just one occurrence of it, and it's non-news. And here we are covering it as news.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess the thing that is annoying is that they doxed I don't know how many Twitter employees who are going back and forth and debating this, rightfully, by the way, debating it and trying to figure out what the right thing to do was. And the second thing that annoys me is that this is sort of the icing on the cake, or whatever the right metaphor is, because I don't see them publishing the Twitter letters about when they pulled Trump or Yi off the platform. Like, I'm sure there was just as much, if not more, debate about that internally. And where are those letters, right? Where are those? Where's that debate? And it's just, I think you hit it perfectly, which is, he literally has something in his calendar, which is, how am I, penciled and circled Monday, Wednesday, Friday of every week. How am I in the news? How am I in the news? How am I in the news? And he's got some PR firm being bonused by making this some sort of top story that people are getting upset over. And we're falling for that bait too. I 100% cop to it, that this is us falling for the debate, and maybe that's is this the tipping point? Like, is this the tipping point where we as a show should just stop covering this because it's not really worthy of conversation? Or is the conversation worthy of conversation? I go back and forth on it, to be honest.
Well, I think people still are hungry to know what's going on. And if you're Elon, so I think we still should cover it because it's relevant to marketers being on that
absolutely,
platform.
100% is relevant for marketers.
But if you look at I don't know the exact stats, but if you look at Twitter's user growth over the past 30 days, it's up significantly as a percentage, more than normal.
Yep.
So I know a lot of that has to do with the newness, and you got a lot of people coming to the platform now because of Elon or whatever the case is. But whatever he's doing right now is working. Just like I think you brought it up a couple episodes ago about the whole idea of shock content, right? I'm going to say things that are polarizing because I get more followers. It actually works. It's a thing. Elon knows that.
It's a short-term work, though. See, that's the thing where
How do you know, though? How do you know it's short term? Because he's been doing this on Twitter itself for the last many years, and he has more followers than anyone else because of it.
Yes, but you have to change, right? Because in order for it to work long term, you have to find new things. This is what, if you look at, Trump as an example of this, Trump has done roughly the same type of strategy. Where is the news about me? Where is the news about me? And say something ever more, vitriolic or whatever it is in order to get to that news. One is it does escalate. There is a level of escalation there where the house of cards can fall in on itself. And one might argue that Trump has reached that point. The second thing is that what Trump has done so well is to change the topic of the story, right? To change the story about what it is that generally there's a backbone that, for him it's the election and all of that, but the topic of the story is different. He's just going to run out of material, is my point. At some point, Musk is going to run out of material on Twitter that is going to be interesting, and at some point it becomes the boy who cried wolf.
I'll play devil's advocate on Musk. I think it could go on for a long time. I really do. I think that he can always find something to needle.
You may be right.
And it can go on and on and on. And the people keep joining and they keep looking at this. Half of them are looking at it, like we talked about last episode, is a dumpster fire. Half of them love the guy. It could be enough. And again, we've talked about this. The model that it's becoming is not a media model. It's something else. We just don't know what that is. And I just commented on Michael Stelzner posted on his Facebook feed about, because we had in the Tilt, we covered Mastodon. Our good friend Stephen Davis wrote a great article on Mastodon, and he was talking about how clunky it was and what's the future of Twitter. And I said the future of new Twitter, or old Twitter, is new Twitter. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be Twitter. So we'll see. It's just not going to be advertising, because we know 80% of those people, advertisers, aren't going to support what's going on, but users will.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. It'll be well. That was your Twitter update for the week.
Twitter update. We got to find a name for it. So you're going to work on music. We got to find a catchy name.
The Muskie Scent is not bad.
Something around Dumpster Fire. Muskie Scent.
Yeah, the Muskie Scent.
The Muskie Files.
Yeah, the Muskie Files. All right, we're going to move on now to something more interesting to chat about here, which is what so many people seem to be talking about right now, which is AI, and specifically ChatGPT, the engine which has been out from OpenAI for a while, but it has been made open, and so everybody has begun to experiment with it. And there are a lot of responses, positive, negative, etc. We'll link to two things in the show notes before we have a little discussion about it. The first is from Marketing AI Institute, our good friend Paul Reitzer, who runs that organization, and his blog post actually on the site, which is entitled "The Marketer's First Experience with ChatGPT from OpenAI." He opens by saying, "I just tested ChatGPT from OpenAI, and my immediate reaction after 5 minutes is that the marketing profession, business world, and society are not even close to ready for what is about to happen as a result of rapid advancements in artificial intelligence. Everything we know about communications, creativity, and strategy is going to be redefined and reimagined in the months and years ahead. The closest comparison I can find in my mind to understand the magnitude of the moment would be to rewind to June 2007 when the iPhone was introduced. What is about to be built in the generative AI space is basically the equivalent of the emergence of the app ecosystem, which Apple says facilitated $643 billion in billings and sales worldwide in 2020. He goes on with, some pretty astounding hyperbole here. He's impressed. Let's just put it that way with the whole situation with ChatGPT. We will partner that with an article. And by the way, there are many blog posts out there that are covering this from various angles. The Ad Age article that I found interesting is 5 ways AI is being used in marketing. Interesting article there that talks about how AI is becoming an incredible trend here at the end of 2022 and expected to be even bigger in 2023, says the article in this opening. The use of artificial intelligence to savvier consumers' likes and dislikes, turning to machines to do some of the heavy lifting. That lifting includes the use of virtual influencers for products and campaigns, using AI to fuel creative copy, create images. Many of the brands are creating new images using the DALL-E 2 platform and Midjourney. So creating copy, speeding up ROI with analytics, wrapping up data into other kinds of dashboards, and virtual influencers seem to be the top ones that Ad Age is talking about with marketing. I find all this interesting and definitely have a take, but what do you think? What do you think about all of this from a content creator standpoint for sure, but from just a general, what are you seeing out there?
I think we're just a stone's throw from the singularity.
Wow! All right. Wow, that escalated fast.
For those of you that don't know, that's a book concept probably popularized by Ray Kurzweil, who talked about when AI becomes self-aware, and when that happens, you get the Terminator movie, right? Pretty much, isn't that kind of what it looks like?
Yeah, that's the singularity for sure.
I think why people, and by the way, what's crazy about this more than anything else is not the technology and what we're looking at. It's how many people are talking about this right now. It is nuts. I swear there were a whole 3 days where that's all people were talking about. Oh my God, this is a thing and it can do this and this and this. What's amazing is we've been inundated with this type of technology for the past couple of years with like Google and Apple Maps and Netflix, but this is the first time that it really has something to do with our content creation, content marketing jobs. where it's very tangible. We can see that in front of us. So I'm probably more on the side of Paul. I think this is a big deal. I think that it's going to have consequences for us in a number of our tasks and can make us more efficient. And we can actually make decisions based on, should we use AI in this way? I don't know the ethics behind it. And the issue right now, I think more than anything else, is ChatGPT speaks or whatever, creates content like it's truth, like it's 100% truth.
Exactly.
And so I'll give you an example of what I was trying to figure out. I wanted to get them to do something that's not right. And I typed in, who coined the term content marketing?
Yep.
And the first one that comes up is Ann Hanley. And there was a second one that came up after that, and it was me. It said it said Ann Hanley in 2001. I said, what's the next one? It said Joe Polizzi in 2001. Neither of those are correct.
Right.
It was coined at a journalism conference in 1996. But so where are they getting this information? This is going to be the biggest issue that's going on, because it's almost like people will talk about textbooks that were created in certain periods of the United States that truths were left out because of people's interests in them. So where is the information coming from that ChatGPT builds this idea of truth? And then do we take this idea of truth and actually build marketing programs and therapy sessions and campaigns around this? That's scary to me. So,
well, that sums it up for me in a nutshell, which is right now, we'll see if this improves, but AI is only intelligent to what it has learned, right? And if you're using the body of the internet as the database by which it learns, you are in a heap of trouble. Because the other one, the fun one to do, is have it write a bio of you, right? Have it write a bio of Joe Polizzi, and you'll be amazed at how what you've done in your life, according to ChatGPT. And the interesting thing is that you nailed it with the content marketing origin story, because what AI is good at right now, and again, I keep using the words yet and right now because this is evolving very, very quickly.
Very quickly.
Is if you have something that requires knowledge that is binary, right or wrong, ChatGPT may be interesting for that, right? In other words, having it write code or having it solve a math problem and show you how to solve that math problem is pretty interesting, right? There was a Twitter thread that you and I got passed along, which said Google is dead, because if you do a Google search for how to solve this math problem, it gives you all sorts of weirdness, and then if you ask ChatGPT to solve it, it actually solves it very elegantly and shows you exactly how it solved it and straightforward. Because that information is there, right? It's two different use cases, by the way. You can't compare Google search with ChatGPT because it's very different use cases about the knowledge that you're trying to get transferred. Google is trying to open it up to as much knowledge as to let you, the human, choose what is the right answer, and ChatGPT is trying to immediately give you the right answer. And that works fine if you've got a body of knowledge that is actually accurate and unassailable. When you start asking it opinions, in other words, to synthesize facts into something that is true or that is a high confidence of true, that's where it gets really problematic. Like assembling your story, like assembling the history of content marketing, because it's only going to be, it will only be able to assemble what it has learned from the body of knowledge that it can learn from. Therefore, synthesizing facts, it's going to reach for something. It's going to have a high confidence in whatever it can reach, and it's going to use frequency to deliver that level of confidence. And so if there's a lot of misinformation out there, it's going to return a lot of misinformation when it starts to synthesize all those information points together. So we're a long way off. So from a creative standpoint, I see from a creative standpoint, like having it write poetry or somebody else posted that it asked it to write lyrics to a country song, which was actually relatively impressive. Well, that's interesting, right? There's an interesting level of creativity because there is no right, there is no correct. whatever
Maybe
it
that's
comes
the way
back
to look
with.
at it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's,
But also to your other point, maybe the bigger story is how it disseminates the information, and it sounds very much like a human being and not like a computer wrote it.
Well, that's true as well. And
that's the beauty of it.
Yes.
I think more than anything else, it's really disseminates. Like, wow, it does sound like a human being,
and that can be tuned as well, right? That is something that can be tuned as well. I mean, one of the things that I wrote I wrote a piece for AI around some of the earlier versions of this, and I said the more interesting application is in a smaller world scenario. In other words, where the learning corpus for the AI isn't actually encouraged to be wide open to the world, but rather within the constraints of a company. In other words, I don't want it to start making up stuff. What I want it to do is actually look at the body of knowledge within my company, all the how-to manuals, all the specs, all the data, all the things that I have in my giant database, and start to synthesize only that and tune it in a way that says, okay, great, now I have a very interesting customer service application that can speak like a human, synthesize all these facts much faster, and assemble a how to solve this problem, or how to solve that problem, or how to solve problems that I never even knew would be a problem, in a way that speaks in the way that the company wants to speak. That's the more interesting application, certainly in the short term, is a limited set of knowledge rather than sort of trying to encompass the entire knowledge. The sexy, interesting, funny thing, the Terminator and the Singularity is where you have the entire body of the internet as the learning model, and you're trying to get things to come out of that are interesting and creative. I think that's, we'll see how that goes. I think that's problematic at best in the short term.
I read a little article from the New York Times, and it linked over, but it was talking about how if a computer knows that it's running on, it needs computer power to make itself go, and it wants more of this computer power so that ChatGPT and other AI can actually work it, they're going to destroy the humans that are taking the other amounts of power. Because they need more power. It's totally the Terminator scenario. But
that's the Matrix, right?
Totally. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it. I'm like, I can really geek out over this. I guess my recommendation to anyone listening is go to chat.openai.com and play around with it.
Have you played around with the other thing that seems to be hot and heavy right now, which is the Lensa avatar art stuff? Have you played around with that?
I've seen it everywhere, and it's almost too much. It's like every other person has given this new profile.
Well, you can see it immediately.
They're
right?
really good.
Yeah, it's got a style, right? So you can immediately see the style and go, that's a Lensa avatar, etc. So to me, it's an intellectual curiosity more than anything else. I'm curious. There's a lot of pushback on it that says it seems to be stealing licensed and other artists' work in order to generate it. But I haven't, and I'm curious if anybody out there in the audience has seen it. There's a lot of claims that it's stealing other artists' work, but I haven't found any links to anybody who says this is whose work is getting stolen. And so I'd really
isn't it more like an Andy Warhol type when you're taking an image but you're changing it to a certain
but that's
extent?
a different. Yeah, see, to me, that's being inspired by, right? That's being inspired by, and that's a different learning mode.
Inspired by,
the
lens is being inspired by the original photography, and it's creating something new from something old.
That's right. That's the equivalent of me trying to take a landscape picture and try and do it in the style of Ansel Adams, right? That to me is not copying. That is being inspired by, and as I understand, to my limited knowledge of the AI, that's really the learning model that's being deployed here. But I don't want to make that assumption. If they are actually stealing work, and just putting deep fake faces of our faces on this work that they're stealing, that is stealing. And so I'm curious because there is a line there that gets crossed, and the question is where and when does it get crossed?
Well, and I'm just intrigued by trying these things out because, as you know, we tried Dolly, and I say 15, 20 minutes every week on doing the show image for this show. And they're good. They're and they almost get it on the first try.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, this. So I want more, and maybe that's the opportunity for content creators and marketers.
Well, to me, that's it, right?
Can you, yeah. What's your problem, and can something like this fix it? And the answer is maybe.
It's the equivalent of what Photoshop did, what digital photography did. It's the equivalent of just about every technology that has ever affected the creative process. It is a multiplier of our talent, right? It is a multiplier of talent, not a replacement of. And and for those who are saying, I'll never go there because it's going to be, stealing this or stealing that, or it's a replacement for creativity, et cetera. I'll just remind you of Clayton Christensen's wonderful quote, "You may hate gravity, but gravity does not care. It's here. You are not changing it. So you should learn to live with it and figure out how to live with it and shape it rather than it shaping you." So
but I wonder if specific to, early days content marketing, if just answering questions is enough anymore, because if you
that's exactly it. Yeah,
AI,
that's
if
right.
you have an open source AI software that can answer the same question for everyone in a unique and compelling way, then you have to do something different.
100%.
That's not enough. Those are table stakes now.
Yep, absolutely. Relevance these days is table stakes. Bringing the human and the creativity to it is what you have to do to differentiate now. That's
so good. That's the whole, It took us 15 minutes to get to that point for people listening to this. You know that,
fantastic.
Right?
All right, one quick story here before we jump into rants and raves here, which is the GE, and we can cover this quickly because I think we both have a very fast take on it. This is going to come to us courtesy of Axios. This is GE buys out the entire New York Times print paper in historic first. The New York Times on Tuesday, that's just a couple of days ago, unveiled a unique version of its weekday print paper featuring more than 24 ads from just one advertiser, General Electric. It's the first time in the paper's 171-year history that any advertiser has gotten to own all of the Times' print real estate exclusively, in addition to most of its premier digital advertising real estate. To celebrate the occasion, top executives from the Times and GE met at the Times flagship printing press in Queens to watch the paper's print in real time on Monday evening. The partnership represents a shift at the Times in the last 10 years from selling pages ad hoc to building big, interactive marketing campaigns for brands that are highly produced and can earn their own coverage. The seven-figure campaign centers on GE's core message of focus, which is to basically celebrate the fact that it has now split into three publicly traded companies, GE Healthcare, GE Aerospace, and GE Vernova, which is energy. I definitely have a quick take on this, but what is yours?
My quick take is you're going to see more of these types of programs where advertising really becomes custom sponsorship.
Yep.
And it includes not just the ad, it includes multiple layers of storytelling, and that's exactly what GE's done here. So hats off. I'm totally impressed that this was a print and an interactive buy. And what's interesting at the end of the Axios article, the New York Times talks about this takes a special type of client to do this. GE is that special type of client they've done like this stuff in the past. They have the chops to do it. Their agencies were all up for it. I see more of these things happening with the clients and sponsors and partners we're working with. They don't just want an ad anymore. They want something that's really going to stand out, really special. So it's this collaboration of a media company and an advertiser that's gonna make some of these things work. And I just love it. Hats off to Linda Boff and the team for doing this. You're gonna see more of it.
100%. I would say it's one of those things where I saw a lot of the reaction in some of the marketing community saying, "Oh, this is so old school. This is, it's not representative of what modern marketing really is, and all of that." And I just couldn't disagree more. This, to me, marketing at the end of the day is around how do you create something worth talking about and creating value. And even though this was really old school in terms of an idea of like you say, an entire publication sponsorship or a benefactor or a takeover, if you like that. We used to, in the old days, we used to do, Yahoo homepage takeover. And this was a takeover of the print magazine, which did what? It got everybody talking about it. It got everybody talking about not only the stunt, the idea, in the similar way that a Super Bowl commercial gets you talking about the idea or the brand, but also talking about what's going on at the brand, right? Why would they do this? What would they do about this? And the message that the company is now splitting up comes through loud and clear in every single article, because they're always covering, well, why would GE do something like this? Well, it's because they're celebrating this, the split of all these companies, which from a brand perspective is really important. And it's a super interesting way to do this. So I echo exactly what you just said. Hats off to Linda Boff and the teams for putting all this together. This, I'm sure, was no easy feat. It was complex and hard, and I'm sure expensive. And it's the kind of marketing that really goes. It's one of those things that I think we'll look back on in 10 and 20 years and go, that was an interesting thing, right? Like we look back at. And I'm not suggesting that it's the same level as the Apple 1984 commercial or Where's the Beef or The Man in the Chair, which is B2B, but the classic advertising campaigns and classic marketing campaigns, this will enter into that, the Hall of Fame, as it were, in terms of that kind of thing. So, because it's historic, it really is.
And by the way, it makes another case for print as something that's renewed as innovative. And the fact that as social media moves continuing toward content discovery, it's very hard to get somebody that lean back content experience where they ask questions. Print is still there. And if you look at the great print publications around the world right now, they're succeeding. You're going to spend 30 minutes sometimes with one of these publications.
Yes.
You can't get that online. Very hard to get that online. So again, that's another one of these reasons why GE put, focused money into something like this.
That's right. Real quickly, do you want to say anything about the TikTok ban in Texas or anything
TikTok,
like that?
Yeah. The real quick, the headline again: Axios, Texas becomes latest state to ban TikTok on government devices. You and I are just need to cover this ongoing. There could, you mentioned before we talked, lots of breadcrumbs here that could lead to something bigger as more and more governmental entities in the we saw it in South Dakota a week or two ago. We're seeing it now in Texas. This is the first round of people in the government saying there's a security risk here because of TikTok being owned by a Chinese company, regardless of how they operate or they operate in the U.S. doesn't matter. There's an issue here. And it's going to come to a head at some point, and I think every couple of weeks you're going to be seeing more of these articles, and then all of a sudden, bam, there's going to be a big announcement.
Yep, so. I 100% agree, and I think once we get through the holidays and what's coming out of the January 6th committee meeting, I think early next year this is going to become front and center. I think I've completely turned a corner on this.
Yeah, because you were totally. I said TikTok
was skeptical.
Was going to be banned, and you're like, no, it never happened.
That's true. I really was. I was skeptical about it, but now after seeing what's going on, I will fully admit to being wrong on this, and it's turned around quite.
Well, so here's my question, and I know we want to get to other things, but this is important. What would TikTok have to do right now not to be banned, not to continue down this path?
Sell themselves to, or divest themselves of the U.S. operations completely. I think
you mean divest themselves of any Chinese involvement?
Correct, and create a U.S. separate company with completely separate. Completely
separate in no way, shape, or form, because that's what they're saying right now. They're saying, hey, we're completely separate. We're outside, but they can't answer the question. Can the parent company in China get your information? And if that's the case, which it is, they can't the companies in China can get that. That means that the government in China gets access to that, because that's what they do. They get to take on all that data owning or renting capability, and that would be it. That's the only solution.
Yep.
Or this
and if you don't think Facebook right now is frothing at the mouth and have every single one of their lobbyists in Washington
pushing for this,
you are mistaken. They are out there.
Maybe that's the biggest thing that nobody's talking about.
There's Apple, so much. Yeah.
You have Apple, Google, Meta, and Microsoft all pushing for this.
Of course. Apple
That's
maybe
25
not. Apple maybe
25%.
doesn't care that much, but the others
I don't
do.
know. It's 25% of the Nasdaq. I mean, it's a lot of money.
Oh, it's a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah,
Hell of a lot of money.
A lot of power there.
Yeah. All right, folks. It is now time for our rants and raves. And before we get to the rants and raves, where Joe and I go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave over something that makes us feel like. By the way, did you see the Pantone color of 2023 in magenta? It's not a shade of orange.
I heard it was not the right shade, and I totally ignored it.
It's a weird shade of magenta. I have to say, it's a kind of a purpley pink thing. I'm not a fan.
I guess I'll look at it. Do you agree with this? I don't know. Can you agree on a color of the year type of thing? I don't know.
I can agree that it's silly, but I like it as a marketing. It's a content campaign that Pantone does every single year, right? I mean,
it's pretty smart.
They've been doing it for years. In any event, before we get on to that, I want you to think about diving into any of the other 352 episodes that we've got available for you, and that is at our website, thisoldmarketing.site. Why don't you, for Christmas, get a subscription for your loved one? Get a subscription to This Old Marketing. Give it away. Forward it. Do something. Give the gift of two chuckleheads talking about Twitter. That's really what you want. The Twitter and the Browns chuckleheads. Give them that gift, won't you? Remember, by the way, you can hashtag us up on Twitter at hashtag This Old Marketing. We love those story ideas. You can also email us. You can also contact us through the site if you're not on Twitter anymore. You can also contact us through Mastodon. Basically, we're really easy to find. So do that, won't you? Get us story ideas. Get us and yourself and your loved one a wonderful subscription. A review. We would love a review, if anything like that. Basically, all hashtag the promotions of This Old Marketing are welcome. So there you go.
And I think for a limited time, it's free. Like
And for a
we're not
limited
charging.
time, it's free.
We're not charging.
Yes,
for this.
we don't have This Old Marketing Blue yet, where you'll get a verified check mark as a subscriber to This Old Marketing, and then you'll for $8 a month. All right, do you want to go first, or shall I go first on this this commentary?
No, I'll go for. I'll be really brief. It's as you know, I've been on this thing about online gambling and Twitch streaming, and some of the streamers that have been, gambling and being funded by other companies, and a lot of this is just coming out, and it's being sent to kids, and there's an issue there. But so my youngest son sent this to me. Basically, Trainwreck is a YouTuber, very popular new YouTuber, and was brought over to a new platform that's trying to be a Twitch streaming wannabe, which is called Kick. Now, Kick was not a streaming platform, but it's becoming a streaming platform, and it's trying to compete with the likes of Twitch. They brought Trainwreck over, and they're paying their creators a lot of money, and in a lot of cases, money, it seems, to talk about online gambling. And it was just brought out, and that CoffeeZilla is kind of they're like a breaking news media site, which I was not familiar with, but apparently, according to my son, they're pretty legit. Found out that Kick is owned by Stake, and if you're familiar with Stake is a crypto gambling company that is basically an offshore casino. So I just want you to put that together, that an offshore casino owns a new platform, or a new used platform called Kick, that is ultimately paying their content creators enormous amounts of money to talk about gambling. Seems to be an issue. Seems to be a problem. They weren't transparent about that. People have had to dig this up. And again, I think I talked to you earlier about the content marketing implications.
Yeah.
If you think about, there's a company who wants to buy a media company, and they're not transparent about it, and then they're talking about something in a certain way that benefits the overall parent company, you have to be transparent, or it's looked down upon. So everybody's really skeptical this is an issue. I just thought I'd talk about it on the show, because you're not going to find another marketing show that's going to talk about Trainwreck and the implications of online gambling.
It's an excellent point. One of the questions when I'm doing a keynote or a workshop these days, one of my main elements of both is to talk about that acquisition, right? To talk about the build or buy thing that you and I have been talking about for years. And the question that inevitably comes out of that is, how do you as a brand promote the acquisition or use or exploit, maybe is the right word, the acquisition to your best without spoiling the water? In other words, without appearing like you're going to come in and ruin everything if you buy this publication or this community or this, thought leadership website or whatever it is. And it's a delicate balance. And my answer to that is always that it's a delicate balance, right? There's the not being transparent enough, which is definitely the case here, which is you don't want to be so surreptitious about it that you basically make it feel like you're hiding the fact that you're doing this.
Yeah,
but
it came off that way. You're right.
But nor do you want to exploit it to the extent that it basically starts to feel like you've transformed it into a marketing website, which we talked about years ago when AB, the big beverage company, bought that craft beer site and issued a press release and made, and stuck their logo all over it and all of that. And basically all those subscribers to the craft beer site unsubscribed because they went, oh, now the man owns it, right?
This is something different.
And so it is a delicate balance there. And there's a huge lesson to be learned here about how we start to use our owned media, that which we've acquired and that which we've grown, and how much to exploit the existing brand into it and where it starts to cross a line into, feeling a little skeevy in terms of marketing and sales, but also to the point where we're not hiding that fact either, right? If you go look at, for example, all the, we talk about Arrow Electronics here a lot and their acquisition of 53 publications and communities and e-commerce sites and event sites in the electrical engineering space. And very clearly at the bottom of every page of one of those acquisitions, it says, this is an Aspen Core, and Aspen Core is a division of Arrow Electronics, and click here to see about us. So they're not, they don't hide it at all. But they also don't exploit it. I think they do a really nice job of balancing it.
And marketers make a bigger issue out of this than media companies that basically acquire every day. And so media companies are dealing this with just thoughtful questions. What makes the most sense? How do we not alienate the community?
Yes.
How do we be transparent enough so they know what we're doing and that we're in their best interests, like you would any acquisition?
Yeah, and it would be supported, and it's going to be supported in the future, and so you can count on the same great content that you've come to learn and love over the last few years, and et cetera, et cetera.
All right, so I want to hear about
all right, well, speaking of nothing burgers, Gartner has issued its CMO leadership report, Leadership Vision for 2023. The Chief Marketing Officer is the report, available to subscribers only, by the way, which makes me feel like, what the hell are you subscribing to? The headline, which we'll link to in the press release that Gartner has released, so go right to the source here. There are a few. Marketing Dive is covering this. Some of the others are covering this. And it's just as filled with nonsense as the press release is. This is the most press releasey, it's 500 words that literally says nothing. The three trends, by the way, for the CMOs in 2023, according to Gartner, this is their press release. These are the three trends that you need to be aware of as a marketer and a CMO. One, shifting customer behaviors that amplify uncertainty. Right. Are you uncertain about the future? Yes, so is everybody else. Burdensome cross-functional collaboration yields worse organizational outcomes. In other words, collaboration somehow is bad. And then third, disruptive market dynamics erode traditional sources of brand value. In other words, things are getting disruptive right about now with technology and the idea of brand value. The press release then goes on to quote Ewan McIntyre, the chief of research in the Gartner marketing practice. The quote that opens up this whole thing is, in order to meet the enterprise mandate of driving growth amid continued disruption, CMOs must act decisively, prioritize investments, and their strategy for the year ahead. Whew. I am blown away with that insight. I am just absolutely blown away with that insight. That is incredible. They go on to talk about the methodology where they interviewed 400 marketing leaders, and they talk about those three trends in a little more depth, basically saying that disruptive market entrants require established brands to reposition themselves to remain competitive. I know that's a shock to you. Over half basically said that it's less important to choose a well-known brand today than it was 3 years ago. that's for consumers, by the way, that basically smaller brands are doing well, other than established brands. Another big shock. Anyway, going on and on and on about this is probably less productive than just saying, I want more from Gartner. I want more from Gartner in insight and leadership when it comes to marketing. Historically, Gartner has been better at this, but this is just nonsense. And I hope the actual report, which of course I don't have access to because I don't pay the tens of thousands of dollars every year to be a Gartner subscriber. I hope the in-depth report, and for those of you who are subscribers of Gartner, get more value out of it than I certainly got out of what they're promoting and the articles that result from it, because this is just silly.
Maybe it was a press release issue. Maybe the report is phenomenal.
I mean, the three things that they're touting here in terms of content and storytelling, this may become a case study for me in terms of how not to do something, how not to.
Maybe there's a really powerful illustration. There could be
a really great infographic.
It's a Dolly 2 illustration.
Maybe
inside.
I mean, the lack of specificity here is breathtaking in terms of the actual predictions and or trends and or what's going on here. I mean, the number one, the first trend that they point to, shifting customer behavior, amplify uncertainty. In other words, and they have 200 words devoted to this. Customer demand and buying behaviors will fluctuate unpredictably, says Gartner. I mean, come on. That is not specific enough. That is not specific enough for what I pay Gartner to give me insight into. It's just.
Are you sure this isn't a 2002 report? Yeah, are you sure it's a 22 report?
Oh my goodness.
Maybe you got maybe an email got delayed and you just got it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just and it's breathtaking in its in its press releasiness. So there you have it. That's my rant.
Yeah, good. All right, so what do you got going on here for the next week?
Well, I have we're wrapping up the year quickly here, so it's heads down, getting some client deliverables done, working on real stuff, which is feeling #blessed that we're so busy here at the end of the year, and just heads down working for all of that. What about you?
Yeah, I'm getting ready for the new year, and I'll be working on trying to get Gartner to sign a advertising program with This Old Marketing. I'm really feeling good about it. So that's what I'll be.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So thanks for helping me with that.
Jump right on board. Yeah, you bet. Oh, you bet. You bet. Yeah, this episode brought to you by Gartner and the Magic Quadrant.
We've done a lot of service for them.
Yeah, indeed. Well, all right, that is it. We're going to see you, by the way, next week, and we'll start to get this year under our belts, as it were. I'm sure we'll have another Twitter update. Until then, it is your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week on This Old Marketing.